President-elect Donald Trump's unconventional and controversial pick for Secretary of State and growing calls for deeper investigation into Russia's alleged meddling into the presidential election. For the latest on these and more, let's spend some time with Ben Schreckinger, a reporter for Politico. Always good to have him with us. He joins us from Washington. What's your sum up of Mr. Trump's first month as president-elect, Ben?
Chaotic, new, and a mixed bag for almost everybody. I think that almost anybody will say that they've had some pleasant surprises in what they've seen and been unpleasantly surprised by some other things, no matter where they fall on the political spectrum.
Yeah, but he has an EPA guy who's against the environment, an education lady who is not loving public schools, a Secretary of Labor who doesn't like the minimum wage, a Secretary of Energy who would like to disband the department. Is that all surprising?
In some ways it is, but in many ways it isn't. In many ways, those moves are most in line with what almost any other Republican running for president this year would have done. Rick Perry vowed to eliminate the Department of Energy memorably. When he was running in 2012, almost any Republican is going to say that they're against Common Core, for charter schools. Many of them will say they're for school vouchers. So in that way, while it may seem radical, those moves are in line with many other mainstream Republicans.
What's the rumble in Washington about Rex Tillerson?
It's a surprise pick. People are noting that it appears that Condoleezza Rice and Bob Gates were instrumental in pushing Trump to make that decision, and that those two people happen to have a business that does consulting with Exxon. Obviously, questions about his relationship with Russia and questions about what this will mean for the Paris Accords and other commitments the United States has made to reducing its carbon footprint.
Do you think Tillerson is in danger of not being approved?
I think that there remains a real risk. I think it's likely that he will ultimately succeed. It's not common for a president's cabinet nominee to be shot down by the Senate, but we know of enough Republicans in Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham and John McCain who have reservations about his relationship with Russia, that bloc could join with Democrats and potentially scuttle a nomination.
Do you think Trump set up Romney to just kind of make him look foolish?
That's a good question. I'm not sure we'll ever know the answer for sure. There were indications from Trump Tower that he was genuinely interested in having Romney as Secretary of State. But obviously this now in some ways can insulate Trump from criticism from Romney, because if Romney does come out against Trump's foreign policy moves in the future, it can be attributed to just sour grapes.
What's the thought about the Russian interfering in the United States election, Republicans even calling for more investigation?
That's right. And if you talk to Republicans who are closer to Trump, they continue to downplay this. But outside of that faction, there seems to be a bipartisan consensus that this is a very concerning precedent. Obviously, the New York Times, their in-depth account that has just come out about how this all went down shows a certain fecklessness on the part of American institutions in responding to this. Real questions about whether the Obama administration will respond publicly now that the election is over. They still have a month to do it, and the world is going to be watching very, very closely in terms of what the response is.
How could Mr. Trump totally deny it without knowing any of the? No one can totally deny it, right? How can we not? We don't know.
That's a great question. Trump looks in some ways like he's being grateful to Russia for whatever help they may have proffered and providing cover for them. Trump is clearly no expert in the forensics of tracking hackers, but has come out and said that there's no way to really know. It's odd to watch him contort himself to deny any Russian involvement in this.
Do you expect any surprises when the Electoral College convenes next week?
I don't expect that they'll do anything other than elect Donald Trump, but there could be some drama. There could be people refusing to vote, people casting protest votes, and that sort of thing. Ultimately, Trump probably has a comfortable enough margin that any kinks like that won't actually prevent him from becoming president.
He canceled his first press conference scheduled for this week. He was supposed to deal with how he would set up a blind trust and how the children would deal with that. What do you hear about why that was postponed?
Well, there were some trial balloons put out about how Trump would handle his business, that he would remain involved in some ways, the trial balloon, that he would stay on as an executive producer of The Apprentice, and there was still some pushback. It seems that they need some more time to try to come up with an answer that satisfies Trump's desire to keep his businesses, but does not create a constant distraction from the work of governing.
Is it safe to say, Ben, this will not be dull?
This will not be dull. I think we're in for an exciting few years, if not more.
Thank you. Ben Schreckinger, reporter at Politico.
Thanks for having me.